Welcome to The Art of Medicine, the program that explores the arts, business, and clinical aspects of the practice of medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Andrew Wilner. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Ronnie Laughlin. Ronnie is a breast cancer survivor and author of An Atypical Journey, Facing Breast Cancer Alone in the Middle East with God and My Tribe. She has also written My Appointment Notebook, your guide to helping you through your breast cancer journey. Ronnie will tell us more in a minute, but first, a word from our sponsor, locumstory.com. Locumstory.com is a free, unbiased educational resource about locum tenens. It's not an agency. Locum Story answers your questions on their website, podcast, webinars, videos, and they even have a Locums 101 crash course. Learn about locums and get insights from real-life physicians, PAs, and NPs at locumstory.com. And now to my guest. Welcome, Ronnie Laughlin.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Will, and I'm so thrilled to be here.
Well, I heard your story, and we at some point, all of us, either ourselves or somebody we love, ends up with a serious illness. And
Hmm.
I think one of our failings, I'll just come out and say it, as a culture, is we don't really prepare for that. It's just something that happens, and it happens to like everybody and it happened to your parents and it happened to
Yeah.
their parents, but nobody ever sits you down when you're 10 years old or 20 years old and says, life is going to get tough at some point, and this is what you're going to be having to deal with, and this is what you should do. I mean, I never got that lecture. And I remember when my father got sick and died, it was like overwhelming.
Hmm.
And, I mean, life is hard on a good day, and being overwhelmed is kind of a bad thing. And going to the doctor and saying, I'm not feeling that great. And then, oh, yeah, look at this, look at that. I don't know. Oh, you have breast cancer. That sort of all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, let's change the channel. I don't want to be in that program. I want to be in a different program. So tell us what happened.
Well, I guess I felt the lump probably 6, 8, 10 months before I even did anything about it. I just kind of put it in the back of my mind. I didn't want to deal with it. And because I have very dense breasts, and you don't know, but most people know when you have dense breasts that you have a lot of lumps in there, and they just kind of go unnoticed, and just they're not anything. Every time you have a mammogram, they say they're fine. And so I didn't think anything about it until it began to tether toward my areole. So my areole was here, and the lump was, well, yeah, my areole was here, and the lump just kind of it tethered toward the lump. And I thought, that's not bad. So I did what any normal person would do. I Googled it and it said, that's not normal to see your doctor. And that's what I did. I went to see my OBGYN here in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And it had been a while since I'd had a doctor's visit like that. So, and I told him, I said, it's been a while since I've had an OBGYN visit, and I'm also concerned about a lump in my breast. He said, well, come on in, because he was a friend of mine. And so when I went in, he did the gynecological exam. It was fine. And then he did the palpitation of the breast, did the left breast, quick, fine, easy, no problem. Right breast, he kept going over the same area over and over again. And he said, Ronnie, I don't like that. And I said, well, what are we going to do? He said, let's get you an ultrasound first, and then a mammogram. I said, okay. I said, can we do that today? He said, probably not today, but just call and, get it scheduled. So I think I got it like 2, 3 days later, which was really quick, in the Middle East, it was really quick. And I got to the ultrasound girl, and she did the left breast really, really fast, no problems. Right breast over the same area. You're in this position like this. And I was like, what are you looking at? And she said, turn around. She took a deep breath first because she was very shocked that I asked her a question because they don't do that in this culture. And she said, look at this spot here. And she pointed out a circle, not a circle, but like a little disc that was nice edges and everything. And she said, you see this one? This is pretty typical. This is just a benign cyst. She said, but this one, She said, I'm trying to get a good picture so the doctor can take a look at it. Now, I didn't know that at the time that the ultrasound videos were being shot to the doctor's office. She could see it on her computer. So, yeah, that's the kind of technology they had. So she was actually viewing it ahead of time. Then she'd come in and look at it again. And she said, I'm trying to get a good picture so when the doctor comes in, she's going to repeat it, but I want her to get a good idea. And I said, okay. And so doctor comes in and she's very, very great bedside manner, young Saudi doctor. And she comes in, does the left breast fast, right breast not so fast. And she said, I don't like this one. And I said, what don't you like? She said, I don't like this lump here. She said, I want to do a biopsy. And I said, can you do it today? Can you do it now? She was like, uh, because as a Westerner, we want things, and they're not like that in this culture. She was shocked. She said, well, she said, if you can get approval, you know, we can do it. And it was close to probably closing time. So I think she stayed a little extra. And so I went out in the hall, got on my app, got the approval, came back in the room. She anesthetized me and took the sample. And Dr. Wilner, I don't know what possessed me to ask, but as the sample was in the specimen jar, I said, "Can I have a picture of that?" And she said, "It's your body, yeah." And so I took a picture of it, and it looked like a hydra. I'm sure I don't, you're in neurology. I'm not sure. We've seen cancer cells, uh, so it looked like a hydra. It was a piece of tissue that had all these little tentacles coming
Hmm.
from it or whatever. And I just took the picture, didn't think anything about it. And so I asked another question. I said, Doctor, have you ever seen it look like cancer and it not be? And she was stunned. She was stunned. She said, no. And I left the hospital knowing 99.9% of the time I was probably had breast cancer. So I got in my car, didn't cry, didn't do a pity party, anything like that. I just asked God, I said, please allow me to walk in and out of this hospital on my own for all my treatments. Because it was at the height of COVID. We were on very different restrictions than you guys were. We had an app that we had to have on our phone that we had to show whenever we went
Hmm.
any place. And we were on curfew and lockdowns and certain hours you could go out and that sort of thing. So I kind of knew ahead of time my friends wouldn't be able to drive me to my treatments and everything. I'd probably have to drive myself. So I just asked God to give me that strength, and He did. So that's how it all got started. And, I guess a few days later, I met the breast surgeon and talked with her, and then the oncologist, and then the breast counselor. They have a counselor that you talk with, and then I went to the doctor who put the port in and got it all started and then started my chemo.
Let me just stop you there for a second.
Hmm.
First, remind us where this all happened. This
This
happened,
happened in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. That's where I'm living and working now. I've been here for about 13 years, 14 years now. And this
and
happened in 2020. Went on lockdown, I think, in March, and I was diagnosed August 23rd.
what do you do over there?
I'm a speech language pathologist. I work with children and adults with communication disorders.
And should I ask, what are you doing there? Why Jeddah and not New
Why
York
Jeddah?
City or,
Yeah,
Atlanta?
yeah, it's okay. You can ask. So the first time I came was in the late 90s, and it was to train a cohort of about 20 or 25 Middle Eastern students for speech pathology because they didn't have that profession here.
Hmm.
And so they wanted to start to grow their own. And they teamed with San Jose State, I think it was San Jose State University, and they would send professors and instructors over every semester to train and teach the students. And one of my colleagues asked if I would come over and help do the clinical training. And I went for 1 year, and it's supposed to have been for 2 years, but I went for one and came back and took my job back at USF, University of South Florida. And then a university opened up that had a speech pathology program, and the same colleague called and asked if I would come over and set up the clinic. And so I came back in 2010 and worked at a university from 2010 to 2014. And then I went to Riyadh, which is in I want to say, I forget the province. I don't know if it's east or west, but anyway, outside of Jeddah, and worked at a hospital for 3 years. And then I came back to work at the university, and now I'm just doing private practice. I'm a private contractor.
Okay. Now, in your story, going back to
Hmm.
the beginning, you found this lump, and I think you did what almost everybody would do. It's like, well, this is probably nothing. And the best possible thing for me to do is ignore it and it'll just go away and I won't have
That's what
to
I was
deal with it.
hoping. Yeah,
And
that's what I
that
was hoping.
sounds like a perfectly natural response. Although we at this point we should probably emphasize to anyone listening that if you do find a lump, that waiting is not necessarily the best approach.
No.
Right? I mean, you can wait a week or two, but not 6 or 9 months, right?
Yeah.
Not don't wait that long. And then you went and you're like, well, I want this now. And I think it's very hard when you go for a test
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to wait. It's like I had a lump under my neck,
Mm-hmm.
and I and the whole thing drew out for a month
Oh,
of waiting
wow.
to see this doctor and then that doctor and then getting the scan and then getting the official read of the scan.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really long story. Bottom line, I was fine. It was nothing. And but that waiting is very. How did you cope with the waiting?
It wasn't a long wait period. Once I got the biopsy, I think the biopsy took 3 days, and my doctor called and told me, what it was, stage 2 intraductal carcinoma, the early stage, which was good. That was a positive thing. And then it was probably like maybe 3 or 4 days after that that I met my breast, yeah, the breast surgeon. And then another 2 days after that, I met the oncologist and then met the counselor. It just kind of rolled very fast. And I think I had my surgery. Well, my first round of chemo was in August, September, October, I think. My first round of chemo was in, so it was a really quick turnaround,
Okay.
unlike the US, where you have a long time to wait. And one of my friends who's a YouTuber, Angela Michelle, she said, well, I was doing an interview with her last summer, and she said, Ronnie, if you were in the States, you wouldn't have gotten that ultrasound and biopsy the same day, right? And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. It probably would. Probably would have been 2, 3 months, just waiting to get in. So I was very blessed in having good medical care over here.
So, well, not to diminish it in any way, but
hmm
this is a pretty common story, right? And why a book? What
Well,
prompted you to write a book about it?
I've always wanted to write a book. Way back in the back of my mind, I'm a journaler. I've been journaling for many, many years, and I even journal throughout my cancer journey. So, when I got the diagnosis and pulling together all the information and doing the research and finding out, about my mortality rate. A lot of people don't want to know, but I wanted to know, and finding out what kind of cancer and what caused the cancer. And with my familial history of my mother and my aunt passing away from breast cancer, or my aunt was more lung cancer, I think, but my mom was breast cancer. So, I wanted to know more about it. And I just kept finding out so much information about breast cancer that just wasn't out there. And I wanted to write a book to let people know that, this is how it can be, this is how it can go, and this is how you can get through it. So my sole purpose was to just help people have a safety net that they could go to find information, and so that it wouldn't be such a daunting experience.
Right. So the first part of your title of your book
Mm-hmm.
is Middle East. We've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, God and my tribe. So
Oh,
why don't we
so
talk
important.
about that? How that helped?
So I'm a Catholic. I'm a cradle Catholic, and I have a lot of faith. I still do my Magnificat every morning and every night. So I do my prayers, but I also have just a strong faith that I had a strong faith, and I have a strong faith that God was going to get me through this. And one of the chapters in my book, it's called The Rehearsal. And when was sat down thinking about my book, I sat down and I was just thinking that everything in my life and every experience and every person that's been in my life has been the perfect preparation for this journey. So, I had been preparing for it unbeknownst to myself that I would need all this, this perseverance, this resilience, this organization, this emotional and intellectual thinking. So I've been preparing for it all along, and I had all the skills. I just needed to kind of hone them in, and that book hones it in for me. And I wanted to share that with others
Well, you're a pretty
because it can be scary.
focused person. I was reading in your bio, you're a Division One basketball player.
Former, we have to
Uh,
put former in there because Ronnie can't do that anymore. But
well,
yes.
Yeah, well, I don't know how many years they let you stay in Division One, but it's at a pretty high level, right? I mean,
It is at a high level. Yeah. And I played for Coach Kay Yao, who was the Olympic coach. I forget what year she was the Olympic coach, but played for her. And she died of breast cancer back in 2009. So, with her being my coach and a mentor and a dear friend and watching her with the battle, again, a preparation. I saw how she handled it. She set up a Kay Yao Cancer Fund prior to her death. I had a lot of good mentors. My other mentor who passed away with a series of cancers was Amelia Hudson, one of my professors at LSU for that I had for my master's program. So, I had a lot of people, and my mom and dad, my family members. So all of those people, including God, helped me get through it. My tribe here in Jeddah, my close friends, they were always willing to help me, even though we couldn't see each other. They'd always call and say, "Do you need something, or can I drop something by?" We were still in the washing groceries stage, early on, and stuff. So it was all very important and very helpful. And the book talks about the importance of having good support, because that's so important in your rehabilitation, that you advocate for yourself and that you have good support.
I worked at the hospital through COVID, and I remember one of the sort of awkward and painful and frustrating things is when we had patients who were sick, then they couldn't have visitors.
Yeah, it's sad.
And so they were alone, and
Mhm.
sometimes to the point of dying alone, because that
Mhm.
was just, the way it was. It all kind of evolved over those few years, but it was
Right.
pretty messy and painful for a lot of people. And some people, in fact, could not even get the care that they needed. I think you were lucky that at least they were able to provide the care for you during, the lockdown, that, the surgeon was willing to show up and do what he needed to
Oh
do, and
yeah.
everybody did that. Well, were there any, must have been some pretty bad days. Why don't we talk about those?
The bad days of I tell you, I wouldn't wish the feelings that I had and the experiences that I had with the chemo on my worst enemy. It was one of the hardest things I think I've ever done in my life. Um, the with when you have chemo, you have your chemo done. Like I had mine done on Thursdays, because that would give me our work week here is Sunday through Thursday, because it's a Muslim country. So Friday's their day of worship. So I had my chemos on Thursday mornings, and I could still do my few clients in the afternoon because I was feeling okay. And then Friday and Saturday would give me time to kind of recoup to get ready for Sunday. But that seventh and eighth and ninth day after the chemo, it's called cancer related fatigue, and it's something that is just worse than just being tired. It's a I woke up the first after my first round of chemo, and I couldn't move. I felt like one of those big concrete things that they have on the highway was laying on top of me. And I couldn't move. And I had an 8 o'clock session. I got up like 5:30. I had an 8 o'clock session that I needed to be up and out and to go to at that time, because I was still doing one child face to face, just, one kid. And it was horrible, 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 horrible. And it has a cumulative effect. So after every round, it gets worse and worse and worse. And after my second round, I told my oncologist, I said, I'm still working. I said, I'm unlike the Saudi women who have a nanny or who have help and that sort of thing. I said, it's just me. I've got to work. And I said, I need to find a solution. He said, well, you can, try uh, vitamin B6, B12. And I did all that. Nothing was helping. And it was the only thing that helped was a drug that was a derivative or used in one of the ADHD meds, and I got that, and that was the helping thing that got me through round three and round four. Because I don't know if I would have made it. I probably would have made it, but it would have been really hard. It was just hard, and that and the constipation and just the fatigue is just. I still suffer a little bit from the fatigue to this day. I, I'm not back to where I was before, but I'm also a lot older, so I can't determine if it's just aging or if it's a combination of the cancer and chemo and aging too. I think it's probably a combination of them.
Right. Well, it depends where you set the bar. My 95-year-old mother complains to me that she can't do all the things that she used to do and she gets tired during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I can appreciate that. And I'm sure that's frustrating. It's like, on the other hand, you're still here.
You're still
So, right.
95, yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's like, where's the bar? It's like, well, I'm not as good as I want to be, but I survived breast cancer, or
right.
I'm, in this case, 95 years old and still walking and talking.
That's
So,
amazing.
it's like, where's the bar? Well, did your faith, was it ever challenged? It's like, hey, why me? I was good, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I never did, Dr. Wilner. I never said why me. I never said, woe is me or anything like that. I just shifted right into intellectual mode. Emotional mode, didn't think about it. Didn't even get emotional about it. Never cried. I just wanted to beat this thing and get through it and make sure that I was here for my family and for my friends, So, um, I learned that from my mentor. She said, Ronnie, there's two ways that you can respond to problems or situations. You can go emotionally and you won't get anything out of it. She said, but you can go intellectually and figure out what you need to do. And that's exactly what I just went down. As a speech language pathologist, you're very regimented in sequences of things. You do this first and that and this. And I just used those skills and tied them all in. And that's how I approached the whole cancer thing.
sounds like there was some Division One competitive skills in there too.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
okay, it's me versus you, and I'm not giving up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Those days of working out and I worked out almost every day, even during the chemo, because I knew that I had to drive myself. And if I wasn't mobile and agile, I wouldn't be able to do it. So I worked out. It wasn't anything, outrageous, but I still did my stretches. I still did some body weights. I still did a little bit of, weightlifting, that sort of thing, just to keep my body going and to keep moving. And that's what I tell, people in the book is that you just can't get sedentary because your body wants you to, but you have to get that mind control and keep moving. Because if you stop, everything's going to seize up. And as I was 62 when I had cancer. So, you know, that's um that's an age where you're not young anymore, and if you don't move, you have a tendency to tighten up, so um I just kept moving and moving forward every day. I walked and I did my weightlifting, I did my stretching, I stretch at night, still do it, and
Yeah,
that was coming from basketball.
I'll put a plug in for fitness. I think it becomes even more important. I see a lot of patients in their 60s, 70s, 80s.
Hmm.
And boy, there's such a huge divergence. I mean, there are 60-year-olds that look like they're 40, and there are
Oh yeah.
60-year-olds that look like they're 80. And at that age, it really starts to matter, the
Hmm.
fitness. So, when you're 30, you're a little more fit or less fit. Nobody really cares. But
And the fitness comes easy when you're in your 30s and even 40s. It comes easy, but when women hit that menopausal period and you put on a couple of pounds, it's not easy to get them off, so it's it's interesting.
what is the appointment notebook?
So the appointment notebook was something that I came up with after the book. And I developed it because I would take a little book with me that had all of my appointment notes in it. I would take notes as I talk with my doctors and, write down dates and results of tests and that sort of thing so I could discuss them with them. If I didn't understand some verbiage or language of a test, I'd ask them about it. So I kept this little book and I always asked questions the night before my follow-up appointments. I always just sat down and just got really quiet and thought, what is it that I need to ask my doctor? And I just write down these questions. So I would take that to each appointment and my whole medical staff, they came to know that I would have questions, and so I thought it would be a good idea and a good way to keep all of a cancer patient's information together with, your chemo treatments, your radiation, your surgery, your contact information, your test results, all of that. So that's where my appointment notebook came in.
Well, I'll tell you a little anecdote. I think your bio resonated with me because in 1982, I
Uh-huh.
wrote a book called The Patient's Companion.
Ah.
And the purpose of that book was it was a book you could take to the hospital with you, and it would explain what you're going in for gallbladder surgery or heart surgery, whatever it was, and it would kind of give you It was never published. I could not find a publisher who would publish that book. It was way before its time. There was no
Mm.
internet. There were no FAQs.
Mm-hmm.
It was, not it was just, gee, what's this? Who would write a book like this? And of course, now there are hundreds of books like that because this is back in 1982. So we're talking 45, more than 45
Mm-hmm.
years ago. So am very sympathetic with that concept that it's important. Also, if you have the other part of that book was you need an advocate. And
Mm-hmm.
I've long felt that you should be assigned somebody. When you get into the hospital, it's like, okay, George is going to be at your side through your
Mm-hmm.
hospital stay and explain what's going on. Because there is no George. You're just kind of on your own and you get what you
Right.
can from this nurse and that nurse and who's ever wheeling you down the hall.
Right.
And if you're lucky, you have friends or family who are kind of
Mm-hmm.
supervising. And I've played that role a couple times. But
Yeah.
it's very, very, very difficult to
Mm-hmm.
actually. I mean, for most people, this is a foreign environment. You don't know the language, right? The
Right.
vocabulary.
Right.
And also, kind of, where do I fit in this picture?
Mm-hmm.
Am I just going down the drain, or is everything going to be rosy? Really, you don't know what you want to know.
Right, right. But and that's where the appointment notebook came in because I have it sectioned out into the different sections with, as you go through the whole process, what to ask the OBGYN, what to ask the oncologist, the breast surgeon, the cancer counselor, the getting a port, all that kind of information. So it just takes you through the whole sequence. And it's just a nice way to have everything in one place. I'm sort of kind of organized and I like to have things in one compact place. And that's just one-stop shopping that I think is real, real helpful. And you don't have to run around thinking, "Oh, where's what did I forget? Did I forget to ask? Oh, I meant to ask them this or I meant to ask them that." You can write it down and have all that information.
Now, you mentioned that one of your mentors did die of breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
You came out on the upside of all this, but
Yeah.
some people when they're diagnosed, it's already everywhere. It's
Yep.
metastasized, and their
Yeah.
prognosis is poor, and they're still going
Mm-hmm.
to do everything they can, but it looks kind of bleak.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you have for them?
I think that you just try and keep a positive attitude and get your number one, get your affairs in order so that your family's not left scrambling and get your affairs in order and just continue to have a positive attitude and live out those remaining days as happily and as easily as you can and as comfortably as you can. Um, I can't even begin to imagine if it had been late stage cancer, what I would have done. I'm sure I would have figured it out, but it's not something you can sit here and like pontificate about. You can't really just sit and think, well, this is what I would do if I was, you don't know. Because you just don't know. So I do know that keeping a positive attitude goes a long way when you're diagnosed with any kind of disease or disorder or anything like that, because it's all about your mind. It's mind over matter.
Now, in your particular case, are you free and clear, or
I am.
you don't
I
have to?
am.
You're
Uh-huh.
good.
I'm free and clear, and I'm on my kind of cancer was estrogen driven. So I'm on an estrogen suppressor. I'm going to be on that for about 5 years. I'm probably coming up to the end of that. And I also have to take calcium supplements and then omega-3. And but other than that, a little bit of hypertension. Just I came with that already. But so other than that, everything's good. Little ache and pain here, but it doesn't slow my golf game down.
Now, if people want to contact you or find your book, where should they go?
They can go to Amazon and find it and just look up Atypical Journey or the My Appointment Notebook. And you can also find it on my website at ronnielaughlin.com. I'm on Instagram, Ronnie Laughlin, and also Facebook. I think it's vronnielaughlin.com author. So those are the places.
Well, Ronnie, I think this has been a very interesting and helpful discussion. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I want to just say thanks so much for having the opportunity. I want people to go out and buy the book and let me know what they think about it and try the appointment notebook and let me know, give me some feedback on, does it work? Does it not work? Do I need to tweak it? What would you do differently or and that sort of thing. But just keep moving forward if you have a diagnosis of any kind of cancer or anything that's a setback. Just keep moving forward and keep a positive attitude.
Great advice. Ronnie
Thanks.
Laughlin, thanks for joining me on The Art of Medicine.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Wilner.
And now, a final thanks to our sponsor, locumstory.com. Locumstory.com is a free, unbiased educational resource about locum tenens. It's not an agency. Locum Story exists to answer your questions about the how-tos of locums on their website, podcast, webinars, and videos. They even have a Locums 101 crash course. At locumstory.com, you can discover if locum tenens make sense for you and your career goals. What makes locumstory.com unique is that it's a peer-to-peer platform with real physicians sharing their experiences and stories, both the good and bad, about working locum tenens, hence the name Locum Story. Locumstory.com is a self-service tool that you can explore at your own pace with no pressure or obligation. It's completely free. Thanks again to locumstory.com for sponsoring this episode of The Art of Medicine. I'm Dr. Andrew Wilner. See you next time. This program is hosted, edited, and produced by Andrew Wilner, MD, FACP, FAAN. Guests receive no financial compensation for their appearance on The Art of Medicine. Andrew Wilner, MD, is Associate Professor of Neurology at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, Memphis, Tennessee. Views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on this program belong solely to Dr. Wilner and his guests and not necessarily to their employers, organizations, or other group or individual. While this program intends to be informative, it is meant for entertainment purposes only. The Art of Medicine does not offer professional financial, legal, or medical advice. Dr. Wilner and his guests assume no responsibility or liability for any damages, financial or otherwise, that arise in connection with consuming this program's content. Thanks for watching. For more episodes of The Art of Medicine, please subscribe. www.andrewwilner.com